In the Heights is the story of people who are both raised in the United States and immigrated to the United States, and specifically to the northern part of Manhattan in a small community called Washington Heights, and specifically deals with the Latino community.
Definitely, Latino people will have something to kind of really understand on a deeper level, but I don't think that people who aren't Latino are going to miss anything.
And it's about dealing with moving forward in the world and trying to remember where you came from. And I think that's why when my grandma came to see the show, my grandma grew up on 6th and D, speaking Yiddish at home, the first thing she wanted to do was grab Abuela and sit down on that stoop. And she said, "Tommy, take a picture of me on the stoop with her."
In my neighborhood, I was the kid who went to the fancy school. At home, I spoke Spanish. In school, I was the Puerto Rican kid. And then I'd get sent to Puerto Rico every summer, where I was the gringo who spoke Spanish with a really bad English accent. And so I felt like three people. And my sophomore year, as I met all these kids who felt the same way, I realized I wasn't alone. And I realized that there's rich material here to write about. I started writing this when I was 19 years old, and I just turned 30 last week. So this has represented my entire adult life.
I went to Wesleyan at the same time as Lynn for 1 year. I was a senior when he was a freshman. So I never met Lynn in college. I heard about this sort of ambitious young freshman. When I graduated the next year, two of my friends called me and they said, "This kid, his name is Lynn, he wrote a show, it's called In the Heights. People really flipped out over it. When we start that company in a couple years, we should produce it."
My best prospect out of graduation was, hey, there are these two kids and they liked my play.
So we circled the date when he graduated, which was May 2002. We went back up and saw a senior project of his, which was not in the Heights, and then told him that we would love to develop it. And we sat down in the basement of the Drama Bookshop on 40th Street, where I'd started a company with those same friends. It was called Backhouse Productions. And we basically had dedicated ourselves to developing new work.
The original draft, I wasn't in. I wrote it and directed it, but I wasn't in it. It couldn't have been more different from what you see on Broadway. It looked much more like Rent than what it looks like now. It sounded much more like Rent, if I'm really being honest with myself. And as I started working with Tommy, we really started to try to make this more in the tradition of Fiddler on the Roof and asking those questions of home with every character possible. I was a son in Fiddler in 6th grade. At 3, I started Hebrew school. At 10, I learned a trade. I still know the choreography. That's one of the great musicals of all time. We invoked Fiddler so much in all of our creative meetings.
Fiddler set this incredibly high standard. This is a story about a community, and it's a very specific community, but because it's about this man trying to hold his family together, everybody had a way in.
When Joe Stein, one of the creators of Fiddler, came to see our show, he came up on stage and he really loved the show, and I said, well, I hope you loved it because all the best stuff we stole from you. And he said, you're right.
And the Tony Award for Best Score, which I already opened, goes to In the Heights.
I remember him saying my name, and I remember going, do the fist bump. I had a whole thing planned, and then about midway through it, people started screaming, and about the second half of it is just made up.
Mom, Dad, and Sita, I wrote a play. Y'all came to every play. Thanks for being here today. Vanessa, who still leaves me breathless. Thanks for loving me when I was broke and making breakfast. And with that, I want to thank all my Latino people. This is for Abuelo Wiesing and Puerto Rico. Thank you.